Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
Let's go, Carolina! It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherber.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinex.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losers.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
All right, greetings and good morning. Welcome aboard and welcome home inside the Gamecocks, the show live from the Sinorama Studios and built by the Barndo Co., the barndominiumco.com, one of the nation's best builders where you can do it if you're in Georgia, Tennessee, where SEC Media Days is, or the Carolinas for as low as $160 per square foot. The barndominiumco.com, they are Gamecock owned and operated, but like I just mentioned a moment ago, they are one of the best builders you can find in the country, and they have the awards to prove it. Make sure you find them, again, at the barndominiumco.com. Sinorama, of course, the preferred sign partner of us and of the University of South Carolina. They are Gamecock owned and operated in West Columbia. Matt Vaughn is a special human, and he can do work for you anywhere within our borders. Make sure you find them at Sinorama.com. You'll find Mike Morgan in about 30 seconds. We'll pop him into the program. He'll be with us for an entire hour. Mike, one of the grandest voices in college athletics and certainly one of the great voices in the SEC today. And here in about an hour and 30 minutes, about an hour and a half, Greg Sankey will step to the podium and officially kick off SEC Media Days, and we'll see what he brings with him in that 10 or 15-minute opening speech. The rest of the scheduled today, Brian Kelly, Jimbo Fisher, and Eli Drinkwitz will follow, and so on and so forth throughout the week, boys and girls. And we're really I don't know if there will be a storyline that's created there or not, but I do know that all of the coaches will have their chance in the spotlight to speak their minds, and we'll see if a certain few are able to do so. Gamecocks might be getting a commitment today. We'll probably try to touch on that coming up here in hour number 2. But JC, Phil, hope you had a wonderful weekend. And I know Mike's waiting. We can pop him in anytime, and we can put this boat in the water and set sail here with the unofficial kickoff to the 2023 college football season. What's up, guys?
Oh, what's up? What's up? I actually don't see Mike. So
not yet. Okay.
No.
Well, he'll be in there.
No worries. As soon as he gets in, we'll pop him in there. Yeah, no, we
11:05. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Now we actually headed your way this past weekend. Spent Saturday and Sunday down at the beach on Isle of Palm, so it was nice.
Yeah. Was it crowded out there? It was hot. I know that.
Oh, it was hot. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. We do things a little differently, so we kind of skirt the edges, right? We get there really early before everybody else does. That way we don't have to deal with it. But no, by the time we left yesterday, it was probably about 11 o'clock in the morning. It was starting to fill up pretty quick. But yeah. You know how it is. It's that time of year.
Yeah, it's out there. I mean, we spent the whole weekend pretty much at the pool. After being on vacation, we chose not to move. And I just know it was hot as hell. Let's just put it that way. So
it was extremely hot.
How hot is it well, y'all just had tornadoes fly through there last week, JC.
Oh yeah. It's hot up here. It's it gets that way. It's in the Midwest, you don't escape the humidity. because there's just a lot of vegetation, I guess, trees, grass, whatever. And so we're kind of at the point of the year where it is hot and it's humid. It's been fortunate so far. Like June was very mild up here, but July has not been. And yeah, when we were in Gatlinburg, actually, bad storms came through to the point my neighbor had to come over and like ferret out the water in the turtle pond outside because Lizzie was about to wash away. That'd have been the second time that's happened to me too. Can you imagine my mental distress if we lost another turtle? Yeah, Lizzie's about the size of a football though, so she can't fit under the. Petey was the small one, and he could fit under the fence. But I learned this about turtles too. They have I want to call it a sonar, but a homing device. Most of them don't ever they live about like 4 square miles within where they're born their whole lives. And they have this tracking device that like they will go toward home. So, if you set Lizzie down in the yard, she just starts walking in a direction. Dark. She's going home or where she was born. Right. And I think, we never found like a body or anything on Petey, like a cracked shell or anything like that when he washed away. I think he just went home, It's like in Men in Black when Elvis is not dead, he just went home. Elvis was an alien. By the way, I got a new show I'm watching. It's called Reacher. It's on Amazon Prime.
No,
I kept seeing some clips of it on YouTube. I started watching it this weekend. I really like it. It's pretty cool. And also started watching the Baz, whatever his name is, with Tom Hanks, the Elvis movie. The other day, it was late, so we fell asleep and paused it, but it's pretty good so far as well. So just wanted to throw that one in there.
Well, I someone else had mentioned that to me before, but I never got around to it. So now I guess with an additional recommendation, that's something that we'll make sure. My phone's recording everything I'm saying. That can't be good. By the way, Mike is going to check in at 11:30. We're updated time there, so we'll hold him into hour number 2 or so as long as he wants to stay. The rest of the schedule this week, guys, we'll be joined. We do have a representative from Park Avenue who will be here on Wednesday as well. Jordan Hill with the University of Georgia will join us Wednesday. Brad Crawford will also be on Wednesday. Jeff Tarpley tomorrow. We've got Chris Phillips later on in the week. We've got David Cloninger later on in the week, and we'll be filling in more gaps as we really kind of hone in on what's happening up in Nashville with SEC Media Days. And did any of you happen to catch, by the way, the clip of Chris Doering, the bet that he lost? Did y'all see this?
I saw a picture of him sitting in an airplane wearing an LSU baseball jersey.
Yeah. No, the whole uniform. He had cleats on,
uniform. Yeah, that's
stirrups,
right.
pants. The whole 9 yards. Well, I was listening to him talk about it this morning, and he said he was leaving Gainesville, and he said, I was rather surprised because I'm walking through the airport, and there wasn't like one person that turned around like, well, that's strange. There's a grown man wearing a college baseball uniform through the airport. Just, but I guess if you really think about it, it's Gainesville, so God only knows what comes in and out of that airport from time to time. It's probably normal. But that was, he lost the bet. So hats off to Doering because he owned up to his bet. The problem that I have with Chris, and I've never met him, but I know that he is just one of the most super people out there. Mike Morgan has mentioned that 1,000 times too. He did it again, guys. This is like the 4th straight year. He just hopped on the Kentucky bandwagon, and he is leading the charge right into the season. He did it again. I mean, he did say it this morning. I don't know if they can, win 11 games. Well, you mean like you predicted last year? So there he is. He's on it again. He's leading. What asked Mike about that?
In his career, and we've had Doering on the podcast on JC and Morgan, and I think he's been on twice. Really good, really good. Y'all remember during his career, he sort of saved the early. I don't want to say save the early Spurrier era because they were winning from the start. But, man, they went up there and played one of Bill Curry's terrible teams, and they were screwing around and not, and they hadn't lost to Kentucky in like forever. And I think it was like fourth down with like 10 seconds left. I think Shane Matthews hit him with a pass for a touchdown. Yeah. And they won 24-20. That was one of the most legendary plays in the Spurrier era there. So maybe he has an affinity for Kentucky because that's kind of where one of the best or better moments of his career took place up there in the Commonwealth. So it could be like it. But yeah, I mean, like some of the old Gator boys, they have some interesting predictions. Shane Matthews thinks Florida's going 8-4 this season. I thought that was an interesting prediction. And, it's not one I completely disagree with because Florida's always got athletes. It's just they just don't have a lot of proven players. And you don't look at that roster like some of the Florida teams of the past. And, somebody's got to lose. I mean, in this league, it's just like you kind of just look and figure out, well, who's who. Somebody's got to lose. But, yeah, that is interesting. He jumped on the UK bandwagon again. One day that may hit.
I don't know. I found as the SEC Network, I think, does a brilliant job in covering media days, and they try to hit everything from all the different angles. That stuck out to me this morning. The other thing that really stuck out to me, they did have Eli Drinkwitz on, and he was asked by, as Coach Spurrier once called him, Burnsy, Peter Burns, to give us your 100%. What can you say coming into the season confidently 100% about your football team? And I thought, like most coaches, he's probably going to dance a little bit, and you know how it will 100% always give great effort, something ridiculous like that. He just, I don't know if you've been watching, he comes literally right out and he says, we're going to be really good on defense. And it's rare. I'll give him some credit. I'm not a big Eli Drinkwitz guy, as we discussed on Friday. But that's rare, right? To see a coach in the middle of July being asked a question that is not necessarily point blank. You can take it however you want to take it and answer it however you want to answer it. And he looks straight at the camera and says, yeah, by the way, our defense is pretty freaking good. So, you wonder where they are on offense, and maybe that's why the guys that generally know more than I know are a little bit higher on Mizzou as being a potential upstart in the league this year.
I think they got a good coordinator. I mean, I think the move they made last year to a coordinator was big. I think they were pretty good defensively last season from time to time. I mean, the one team that really kind of got after them before they played Carolina, I remember breaking down that game, was K-State, and that's a triple option team, essentially. Yeah. K-State went up and down the field on a lot of people last year. And we'll see this year. I mean, I tend to agree. I think when you look at Missouri, they're not overly crazy good at running back. They do have some skill talent at receiver. I think they're all ready to bench Brady Cook. But Brady Cook has some moments where he plays well and beat out the other guy. Then they got guys behind him. So, that's the thing. And I think when Eli has a good defensive team, his offense – because his offense is essentially dink and dunk, short passes, power runs. They try to hold the ball. It's not overly explosive. When he's playing good defense, that offense can eat clock, and they play you pretty well. So I think, we've talked about their schedule and how it could be anywhere from 2-3 to 5-0. So I think that, they probably are going to be pretty good on defense this year. And but you know what? As far as the Gamecocks are concerned, Gamecocks will be pretty good on offense. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, if you actually go and look at the 22, if you go back and look at the 22 Tigers and the number of games that they lost by less than a touchdown, and that includes the 4-point loss against Georgia. Y'all remember that last year up there in Columbia, Missouri?
Mm-hmm.
They did. Yeah, we thought. Well, they had so the week before they went to the Plains. And Auburn beat them in overtime by 3.
Crazy.
Remember that game?
Yeah.
That was wild awful. What happened over there at the end.
Wasn't that the fumble right before the end zone kind of deal? Was that that game?
Yeah.
Or he stepped out. Yeah, man.
Either way, it was heartbreaking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't you – I don't know about y'all, but I kind of thought after that – because they beat I pulled their schedule up here to remind myself. I knew they got thumped in there. But they beat Louisiana Tech. And they had beaten Abilene Christian in week 3, and Abilene Christian is terrible. They have no business being on the field with Missouri, but they only beat them by 17 points. However, sandwiched between those two games, was on the road at Kansas State. Y'all remember that game? Kansas State hung 40 on them. They got beat 40-12 in that game. And then when they got their hearts broken by Auburn, I thought this team 4 games in, not only are they, I don't think, very good on offense, there's no way they're not just deflated at this point. They got their rear ends kicked at Kansas State, Manhattan, Kansas. And then they have every chance to win the Auburn game, and they get – so I thought they were going to go into that Georgia game. We might have talked about this last year. I thought Georgia was going to beat them by 50 points. And you can make the argument Missouri should have won the game.
Oh, they had them down 10.
Yeah.
And Georgia methodically, just really methodically came back. It wasn't anything explosive they did. They just came back. They had a hard time. So, and that was a good moment. I thought really after they beat Carolina, they hit another skid, and then rallying like they did to beat Arkansas and win the Red Line Trophy or whatever the hell they call it, the forced rivalry, the forced border war out there. Beating them was big, and then of course they lost their bowl game to Wake Forest. But they're kind of helter-skelter. But the one common thread, JB and Phil, was they did play good defense last year for the most part.
Yeah,
K-State got the best of them. Tennessee, and Tennessee just lit them. Whoa.
Yeah.
They weren't stopping Tennessee at all, but that game still was like 5 points. All of a sudden it was a 5-point game. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's like, 29. Right. And the Vols, of course, poured it on 66-24. They've beaten Drinkwitz 62-24 and 66-24 in 2 years. So if your defense is really that much better, be sure you stop the Vols in Columbia this year, because
or at least keep them under 50, right?
Keep them under 50, and we'll make progress. But yeah, it's and somebody's talking about Sat versus Drinkwitz. That it's just sad. It's kind of sad what happened, and Eli Drinkwitz, an offensive mind, has owned the Gamecocks 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
At App State once and Missouri 3 times, primarily with the way his teams have played defense.
Yeah.
And look, that 2020 game, heck, if they'd have gone with Doty earlier, maybe the Gamecocks come back and win. I thought that was a good Missouri team, and I thought Carolina played inspired ball for the last time that year, the second half. But dude, even though that game was 31-28 in 2021, Gamecocks had 250 yards of offense. They benefited from turnovers and stayed in the game, somehow got back into it. Last year was pathetic.
Yeah.
Pathetic. Yeah. And Carolina's defense did not get off to a good start, but then they rallied and were able to get enough stops. Keep in mind that game was 17-10 at one point.
Right.
And sad, they just couldn't do anything against the defense. And dude, that's over how many 4 different defensive coordinators he's had? He had one at App State. He had one at Missouri first year. Then they had Steve Wilkes, which is a disaster. And then they hired this new guy, and they've just been able to stop the Gamecocks. Carolina's got to put points on the board against them this year.
Well, I think honestly, when you actually now kind of take a step back and look at Missouri, there's their first 4, they got, they're going to want to give Kansas State a little taste of their own medicine from last year, right? If they can do that, it is really hard for me to figure out how they're not going to be 4-0. South Dakota, Middle Tennessee, Kansas State, and Memphis. And then they got to go to Vanderbilt. So I don't know about you two, but I would probably at this point in time say that the odds of them being 5-0, probably 50-50. Is that fair? We're talking, look, 5-0 is hard to get to. Things happen in football. But at the same time, if things really go wrong, they could come out of that deal, at 3-2 or somewhere in there. But you mentioned the points, JC, and so yeah, they've got, if Carolina can score, there's one game. They've got LSU coming to town. They've got to go to Georgia. They got Tennessee. I think those. I don't know about Kentucky. I'm listening to everybody talk about Liam Cohen and Devin Leary. I feel like we hear the same thing every year at Kentucky. Oh, they have a new quarterback and they have a new OC. Okay, well, All right. That's fine, but I'm not sure I remember a year where they're out there averaging 40-plus points a game. I don't know about y'all. So it just seems to me like there are 4 true opportunities for that prove-it type game for that defense, that Missouri defense this year. And South Carolina needs to prove it. Like, they need to prove it. I'm with you. I totally agree with you, JC. It's losing to Missouri 4 straight years sucks, right? Losing to Missouri 4 straight years because you can't score any points sucks even worse. And it's been really sloppy and choppy when they play them. It's been very frustrating to watch those games if you pull for the Gamecocks.
Yeah, they're heartbreakers. I mean, there's no reason whatsoever from a talent perspective when you're looking top to bottom on these rosters why South Carolina should have lost 4 in a row.
No.
But yeah.
I
think that's what makes me dislike Drinkwitz even more, because it was like, obviously he put together a good game plan and they were out there executing it and, stopping everything we were throwing at them. Now, albeit we've been hamstrung offensively for the past 2 years and we've, let that go coming into this year. So I think we feel a bit more confident about the offense moving into this year.
Yeah, prior to that, Carolina, of course, had won 3 straight under Coach Muschamp, in which they had figured him out. Yeah. Muschamp's team scored 31, 31, and 37, and then 19 rolls around. Missouri did score 34 points in that game. But, I'm with you. 14, 10, 28, and 10, that you just can't have that. You've got to be able to score points. And if Eli Drinkwitz is right and others, making the argument that this year's defense, more than likely, if you're going to come out and just say we're really good, that means they're better than probably the previous couple of defenses. It just seems like it's going to be more difficult to score points on the road in Columbia, Missouri. But nonetheless, nobody wants to hear that if you're a fan of South Carolina. Who cares? You can't get beat by them again. You got to go up there and find a way to win. And I guess we'll see what happens there. Gandy, y'all actually watch the 2020 season? Yes.
Yeah.
Every minute of every game. When you are a actual, if you're an actual fan, that's what they do. And when you work in the media, as we do, it's kind of moronic to cut a microphone on and think you're going to talk about something that you've never seen. So we did watch every minute of every game. All right, it's 11:24. Media coverage this week. Our coverage of Media Days is teed up by TravelingCountryClub.com. It's the coolest club in the Carolinas. 45 courses to play between both North and South Carolina, and it is Gamecock owned and operated. That's a trend around here. Michael Manus is a special man. He played golf for the Gamecock golf program, and now he is the owner of the coolest club around, TravelingCountryClub.com. Mike Morgan is up in just a few minutes. Hang tight inside the Gamecocks. The show will be right back. Welcome home. That's what the Gamecocks say, and so does the Barn Dough Company, where they can build your dream home starting as low as $160 per square foot. If you live in the Carolinas, Georgia, or Tennessee, their turnkey process takes just 4 to 6 months on average and can be custom designed by size and details. Make your dream a reality. Visit thebarndominiumco.com. That's thebarndominiumco.com. The Barn Dough Company, Gamecock owned and operated.
Welcome to TravelingCountryClub.com, your modern golf club experience. Hey folks, this is Michael Manus, former Gamecock golfer, inviting you to play more golf with a membership to TravelingCountryClub.com. With over 40 courses across the Carolinas, our membership provides you with an affordable way to enjoy a club-like golf experience. From the mountains to the coast, we offer golf courses that will challenge all types of golfers, no matter your handicap level or level of play. Plus, we offer unique membership benefits not seen anywhere else as part of Traveling Country Club. In July, we're excited to bring to you the 3rd annual Plunder on Pawleys 2-day golf tournament, with rounds played at Caledonia and True Blue golf courses in the heart of Pawleys Island. Head to TravelingCountryClub.com to register for that event, and it is not exclusive to TCC members, but to become one, you can sign up and bring to life your golf game. Tee it up with Traveling Country Club, TravelingCountryClub.com, TravelingCountryClub.com, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Hey Gamecock fans, it's Evan Stowe from Gamecock Baseball. A couple of painters paint the show garnet and black every day and get the job done right at a fair cost. Go to LetMePaintSomething.com for information and an estimate. Go Cox!
You heard Evan Stone, Gamecock fans. 10% off for military repeat customers or mention the show. Interior, exterior painting, fencing, cabinet staining, concrete painting, popcorn ceiling removal, and more. 803-522-6832. LetMePaintSomething.com.
Everybody, welcome back inside the Gamecocks, the show live from the Sinorama Studios. First hour of the show, as always, brought to you by Cindy Searfoss and the Coldwell Banker Kane Realty team here in the Upstate. I know a lot of y'all are thinking about considering a move to the Upstate, and if you are, give Cindy a call at 864-414-5271. She'll be happy to walk you through the process, just like she has for a few of our other listeners.
I didn't like the way Sir Big Spur was looking at me right there.
Oh, man, you got to look out, man. It's a shifty chicken.
They're gonna get after you, man.
Man, I tell you what, you really don't want him to look at you crazy.
No. There's a few of them that are that roam the streets on the way to dropping my kids off to school in the mornings, and it's pretty funny to see. I know which house they belong to, but they will just walk out on the road and they don't care. They'll stop traffic. Everybody that travels that road pretty much knows them, but they understand this is my street. So you honk your horn, you can do whatever you want. They ain't moving until they feel like moving. So hats off to those Gamecocks down the road there. Appreciate them making us late from time to time.
That's right. Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, we've got our special guest has arrived here. Let's bring him in.
There he is. The golden tones of the great Mike Morgan, probably joining us from his kitchen, I would imagine, in his in lovely Atlanta.
I'm waiting to see where it is.
Who is Kaiser Soze?
Uh-oh. We got something. Nothing's going on here.
This is my alter ego, Kaiser Soze. And Kaiser never does the show from his kitchen in Atlanta. Kaiser has other locations around the globe. I may or may not be near a beach in southern Florida, but we cannot confirm nor deny such reports or allegations.
Yeah, that's not the Atlanta. That's not the Atlanta studio right there.
No.
Oh,
we've got two Atlanta studios. I've got that professional looking studio with all the great background credentials of games I've worked and different photos of people I've worked with and little plaques and all this good stuff. And I wind up, whenever I do something, as JC knows, when we do the podcast, I often wind up back where I'm most comfortable, which is the little nook between the kitchen and the family room. The family room has always got some type of sports or a movie on. And I'm wired a little bit differently than most in that I've always got something on. I like background noise. I don't like quiet times. Libraries and me don't see eye to eye. So I wind up going in that room, and I'm sure we've had a lot of great guests here lately. I'm sure they're wondering, why is Mike doing this with the island of his kitchen and a spice rack behind him? But that's my comfort zone.
Well, I guess eventually we could morph that segment into Blackledge's Taste of the Town, where Mike is Taste of Mike's kitchen. Whatever.
Yeah, because
it's the peanut butter and jelly.
3 feet from the grill. I could just, and during commercial breaks, just walk out and, hey, look, I just happen to have a half rack of baby back ribs. Let's do this segment and enjoy some.
Now this, boys, this is PB&J. Yeah, I hear you.
I've seen Mike's grill set up. It's second to none.
All right.
They're kind of in the trees. I mean, it's like,
yeah,
his backyard is kind of like there's a lot of trees, and he's got an upper deck. That's where he does all his grilling and hot tubbing and things.
Hot tubbing,
yeah. It's like a sports bar. It's like Club Med up there, man.
For the record, the hot tub did come with the house.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it did. I'm not.
Yes.
Would I have ever gone out and bought a hot tub? Am I a hot tub guy? Maybe, maybe not. But I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it.
Yeah,
JC,
the grill.
I've got to put the hot tubbing into my boating category. Like I hate when people say boating. So I'm not a hot tubbing guy either. Either getting in the hot tub or you're going in the boat. You're not boating and hot tubbing.
Wouldn't call yourself a hot tubber.
I'd rather have a boat, but that
Bradford's got a hot tub too. It's just in Maggie Valley. I mean, it's in the mountains. So it's true. You know, you guys, I'm jealous.
Beautiful view.
Me and Phil got to get on the hot tub train.
Yeah. All right.
That'll be a theme of this show. We all have hot tubs. We should do the show all from our hot tubs when we all get one.
Yeah, I'm not
that would be interesting. 4 guys in 4 separate hot tubs on a podcast.
I feel like it should.
That would get people talking.
It would, yeah, it would. There's no doubt, and they talk enough, so I don't want to give them any more reason to do that. All right, Mike. Media Days is pretty much underway. Sankey will be up there in an hour, about 12:35, I think, is when he will step to the podium. But speaking of that, describe Greg Sankey's importance to this league in your mind and what he's achieved and what he just means as the leader. I think of the most valuable league certainly in college sports, but in how he uses his vision to drive it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I was talking about this on another show last week, and the question was kind of posed the same way you posed it, but then the host also added, well, it is the SEC. It's hard to screw up, right? And I was like, actually, it's a lot easier to screw something up than to advance it, really. There's no question the SEC is the premier property, if you will. It is the Lamborghini of conferences. It has been for quite some time. You know, I've said this many times. My introduction to the conference was I have an older brother who went to Auburn back in the 80s. And as a kid, that got my juices flowing to really understand it. And then I watched it expand in 92 with Arkansas and South Carolina. And now, of course, we're on the precipice of adding Texas and Oklahoma. And, you know, I remember how important it was and how revolutionary it was to go back to Roy Kramer with the SEC championship game. When everybody thought that was crazy, it would actually hurt the league. That's right. People thought that would hurt the league. But what Greg has done, he's taken the Lamborghini and he has souped it up, right? I mean, he's added, and I'm not a big car guy, but he's added cams to the engine. He's got a spoiler. The sound system is fantastic. He's tinted the windows. He's got a moon roof. He made it, for those that are in the EV world, it's a hybrid. You if you don't have gas, it's okay. You can just take the EV switch and put it on. To say that you can't screw up a league like the SEC would be wrong. You know, the Pac had a really good run there for a while. The Pac in football, in basketball, in baseball was a really good league. And they went outside the box and hired a guy from the Women's Tennis Association and Larry Scott. And he basically took that Lamborghini, drove it into a ditch, didn't have collision insurance, totaled the car, and the Pac has been at times irrelevant and now is on the brink of extinction if something doesn't happen here of significant consequence in the next few, I don't know, days, weeks, months, that they've been kicking that can down the road for a long, long time. The Big Ten, I'm convinced now they're on more steady ground, but you go back to COVID, which is where I really think Greg Sankey shined so superior to anyone else running a conference. I mean, he was already doing great work, and he was already, those of us who follow college athletics on the day-to-day as we all do, we already knew what Greg Sankey was doing was somewhat magical. The nation found out the kind of leader Greg Sankey is during COVID because he was so far ahead of the rest of the gang. And he did so. Remember now, every move he made, if it was the wrong one, if he was scared to make the right moves, then he would never hear the end of it. The national media, which clearly had a narrative during COVID, JC and I've talked about that on the podcast. I learned a lot about writers that I've been following for a long time, just their predisposition to certain beliefs that they want to continually shove down your throat in the guise of just covering college football like your traditional beat writers do. They were ready to pounce on Greg. If any of those things turned out wrong, it's putting dollars over the safety of athletes. It's putting football over the sanctity of keeping everybody, out of harm's way. And so it's not as if he made those moves without a major storm of criticism headed his way if they turned out to be wrong. Instead, they were all right. I mean, move by move by move, while everybody else was either trying to outsmart the room or they were just kind of waiting on what's Greg going to do, because I don't want to be the first one in the pool. And so that to me is when you realized, okay, that's what leadership is all about. And I'm sure he had many sleepless nights during that time. And time after time, at the craps table, a game I still don't understand, but he kept rolling sevens, which I think is a good thing. Anyway, and then in the last few years, you've just watched move after move, whether it's media deals, whether it's getting Texas and Oklahoma when, quite frankly, nobody saw that coming. That wasn't even on your typical internet rumor mill. To make it to take the already strongest league in college athletics and to add two heavyweight brands to the pot. So when I look at that, and when he dresses here's the other thing too. He's going to address the media today for whatever it is, an hour. And that'll be broadcasted on the SEC network, and a lot of SEC fans will be watching. But you know who else will be watching? Anyone who covers college athletics.
Yeah.
And no disrespect to the other conference commissioners out there. I think there's a couple of good ones. I'm impressed with what the new Big 12 commissioner is doing and trying to do. But it doesn't move the needle nationally. Like with what they say at their press conferences, with all due respect, it's not of major consequence. Whereas when Greg goes up there and speaks today, that is going to be national headlines all over the place. And everybody's going to be like, well, what's he thinking? What does he think about NIL? What does he think about future expansion? What does he think about the state of college athletics? Everything he says is monitored because they know it's like when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. When Greg Sankey talks, people listen and they hang on every thought that he has. And that's the difference. Because he, I think, has now garnered so much national respect that we don't have a czar of college athletics, but he's the closest thing to it.
You really just hit on something, and I think that's spot on. JC and Phil, it's not always actually what Greg Sankey is saying. It's what he's not saying, but what he's thinking.
Right.
To your point. And I think that is what has allowed the SEC to grow. Like it's Don Staley mentioned this last year about how much more difficult it is to stay at the top of the mountain than to climb up there. And when you succeed in sports and athletics, because now everybody's after you. And you just pointed out a minute ago, Mike, that especially during COVID, remember everybody's jumping to every conclusion. Well, here's what we're going to do. There wasn't a word, a peep out of the SEC. Greg Sankey shut everybody up, and he said, "Let's just let it all unfold and play out, and let's take it to the end here." So he's quite the observer, but he also understands that although this is the best league in the country, and you can not just football, you can bring everything into it. There's not a league out there that's close collectively from an athletic standpoint. If you just sit back and pat yourself on the back, you're not going to be there very long. And I think that is what's most impressive about him is working so quietly behind the scenes to continue to advance the agenda of the SEC and probably ultimately college athletics overall.
Yeah, and he's not flashy. Like he's not looking to make headlines. That's not Greg's way. He's not looking to be the guy that gets a juicy headline for everybody to go. Like he's not an attention hound. I think sometimes there's been a few conference commissioners, again, to use the term I used earlier, they outsmart the room, they outsmart themselves in the process. They try to be innovative just for the sake of being innovative and different, not realizing that they really might be causing their own league peril. And we've seen that time and time again. And that's not Greg's way. In a lot of ways, he's understated. So I think the SEC has had some great leadership over the years since I've been covering it, going back to Roy Kramer and then Mike Slive, may he rest in peace. I thought did outstanding work, and now with Greg Sankey. So they've been fortunate. There's no question you're walking into the best job when you get that job. There's also no question that it's the most pressure and the most scrutinized of the Power Five or any league for that matter. So you've got to be ready. You got to have some thick skin and be prepared to be completely second guessed.
It is 11:43 on this Monday, July 17th, 2023, SEC Media Days, setting to take place in Nashville. We need to hit a quick timeout. Phil, go ahead and play the one on this one, break 3, and we'll just take a quick one so we can maximize our time here in hour 1 with Mike Morgan. When we return, some of the conference-wide storylines and more here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show from the Sinorama Studios.
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Are you looking to buy a new home? Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Final segment here in hour 1. JC will be back in just a quick second. I had to handle something.
Did I run him off? Is that what?
No, Phil. You get the text.
Apparently, he's apparently he's got his microwave and his internet on the same breaker, and they can't operate and exist at the same time.
He's like cousin Eddie. He forgot his name and pissed himself.
He's not going to gift a cat, is he? Is he a member of the Jello of the Month Club? Because I know
that's the gift that keeps on giving there, Kaiser.
It really is.
You just never know these days. That's for sure. Doing live programming from your home. That's why I'm on the 3rd floor. Whatever happens on the 1st and 2nd, that's between them. All right, Mike. We'll get much more when we turn it over in the noon hour into some of the actual specific team type, not issues, but topics that could be discussed this week. One that I don't think a lot of people have paid much attention to, but I'm just going to leave that tease out there for now, and we'll get to it at the top of the hour. As far as the conference goes, though, the league itself, are there pressing issues? Is there something that Greg Sankey probably needs to have at the top of his list to be addressed? What is the burning question or questions, or are there any, entering this year's version of Media Days?
Well, there's no way, even though it's resolved temporarily, there's no way he's going to avoid a question about a 9-game conference slate and whether or not that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. I think most of us believe it is going to happen.
Yeah.
I've talked to some people, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but there's no question that when you go to an extra conference game, you would like to be compensated for the extra conference game. And as people have probably seen in the news, this wasn't exactly the best time to get extra compensation. That doesn't mean that won't be revisited. Not at all. Like, I could totally see that. Now, there are, as I always say, like, this is the SEC office is not a dictatorship. So you don't just heavy-handedly say, I want 9, and therefore everybody gets 9. There clearly were some coaches, which then speak to their ADs, who then speak to their school presidents, that said, no, 8's just fine. So it's not like this was not a unanimous situation that everybody wanted 9 either. But I still think the majority is going to prevail on this. And when the terms are right, we'll get to 9. So that question is going to come up. And I'm sure Greg will be very diplomatic in the way he handles it, because there is no new news. But it's still very much a subject that is going to be relevant a couple of years from now, because we only have the schedule set for the 23-24 seasons. After that, there's plenty of wiggle room to change a whole lot of stuff. So that'll come up. You know, the typical stuff that prevails over all of college athletics, whether it's NIL, whether it's the transfer portal, you know, recruiting periods and contact periods, which JC knows more than anybody in the world about. Those things aren't going away. Every time I talk to coaches, they're just downright pissed, guys. They are miserable human beings when they talk about the state of the not even the rules. It's the lack of rules that they're now operating in. And then the few rules that we do have are not exactly coach friendly. And I realize some people just want to audit. Their reflex reaction is to go, oh, boo hoo, you make $8.5 million a year, deal with it. But is that really the message we want to send? Like, because they make a lot of money, then we should make them miserable and make them.
Well, they won't be here that long.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Nobody's going to keep doing that. I think to your point, and JC will get you in on this here. I think one of the things that the commission has been vocal about recently is the transfer portal window and trying to trim it from 60 to 35. And now there are other things, of course, that coaches are a little bit frustrated with. But let's just hold the phones for a second here, because all we've done for 20 years is listen to basically what you just described, Mike. These coaches, they can just up and do whatever they want to do. They get paid a bunch of money. They can run around and leave whenever they want, and that's true. But they're also under this thing, as you are, Mike Morgan. I'm not. Phil's not. JC has one. They're called contracts. So you can't just get up and walk out the door. That's it. I'm gone. So, you know, the players now actually can do that. Okay. My point, though, circling back to Greg Sankey, is he has made some comments, interestingly, here and there that show me, and if you're paying attention, show the public that he's listening to the coaches in the league, and he's listening to the ADs, and he's listening to the presidents, and he is concerned not only about the quality of the league, but he's concerned about the quality of life of those within it. And those are the faces of the league. When he speaks, like that 60 to 35 thing, you talked about the recruiting calendar. It's very rare that we see these commissioners speak eloquently, but he doesn't use a lot of words. He says it very few words, but it's enough to know I'm listening. I have your back. You do have leadership, and we're working on it. And I think that that's something that makes all of these coaches very respectful of the job he does.
Was that to JC? Is JC frozen? JC is frozen. JC is like
you take the lead.
He's like Harrison Ford in Empire Strikes Back. He just got frozen.
Actually, I don't even think he's frozen. I think he was just doing that. No, I'm just kidding. But you can take
just meditation.
You see what I'm talking about, though, Mike. I'll let you take it from there because it does show some leadership, and that's not always the case in these leagues when you get these powerful people that are running.
Well, and look, the other thing is, and I know non-SEC fans are like, "Oh, this is so nauseating." They're going to talk about how great Greg Sankey in the SEC is, but facts are facts. Like he's the one guy that can move the needle. Like if it can be done, he's the guy that can do it. I'm not sure if Jim Phillips of the ACC is moving the needle. The Pac, as we just talked about, I mean, they're just holding on to the iceberg or the patch of ice, like DiCaprio. He's sitting there and moving his legs while what's her name is getting all cozy and waiting for the rescue boat. That's where the Pac is. They got bigger things to worry about. I like Yormack. I mentioned this before. I like Yormack over there at the Big 12. But for right now, the SEC, when it comes to actually legislation that has to be the ones that the part of it that has to be unilateral, not unilateral, has to be kind of ubiquitous. It has to be for every conference where you don't have a separate rule. That is going to be led by Greg Sankey because the question becomes, well, if not, then who? If it's not Greg Sankey kind of leading the way on that, because they all look. He determines what direction the wind blows when it comes to all these things. He really does. So, yeah, I mean, look, he cares not just about. There was a great interview, and I'm not a big Joel Klatt guy, but there was a great interview one-on-one that they did a couple of weeks ago, and what I got from that too, and Joel did a good job of bringing this up, is that Greg is not just concerned about the health of the league. He's health about the state of college athletics as a whole. The two don't have to be mutually exclusive. This is not where like you're McDonald's and you're doing everything you can to drive Burger King and Wendy's out of business. That's not the way this works. If you drive everybody else out of business, you don't have the same quality product. Right. The SEC is fantastic, but if the SEC only has the SEC, college football is not as strong. Like you want some geographical balance. You want some other things to be healthy as well. Yes, you want to continue your dominance in the sport and you want to continually play for national championships more than any other league, but that doesn't mean you're rooting for the demise of everybody else. And I don't think that's what Greg is looking for either.
JC, do you think that Greg Sankey is trying to position himself to, if they ever go to a true leadership model in college athletics, to be the guy that's chosen to run it all, like the commissioner of college athletics? I think he's having a difficult time with his internet today, Mike.
Yeah,
do you think
really
that?
Is.
Well, I'll handle that until we defrost JC. I don't think. First off, I don't have enough confidence that organization will all of a sudden take place, where basically there will be, like Tim Brando, who we've had on the podcast a number of times, where we finally get to the point where there's a true czar of college football. I just don't have enough faith in that to happen. For all the things that are bad about the NCAA, the one thing it does well is organize things. Mm-hmm. It organizes the other 89 championships and the other 89 sports that are not college football. The NCAA is basically a great event planner. That's their strength. Everything else they suck at, but they're a great event planner. To ask all these conferences and their cash cow, which is football, to look out for the better good of college athletics by kind of sacrificing some of their own, that type of magnanimous actions. I don't know if I expect that. And so therefore, I don't think we're going to have a czar of college football anytime soon. Would Greg Sankey be the best candidate? Sure he would. Would he be interested in leaving? I mean, something tells me the SEC would say, Greg, how much is it going to cost to keep you? Money is not an object here. We're not going to let you go. We're going to offer whatever they offer. Yeah, we got that plus $5 million. I mean, I just can't see that happening. So my guess would be to your question, and it's a good one. No, I don't see that happening in the near future.
Which, by the way, I learned this morning out of Greg Sankey's mouth, he does not have an agent. He has an attorney who looks over his contracts to make sure. No, but he said, I do my own negotiating, and I do not have an agent, which is.
I don't think he needs one, quite frankly.
No.
You know, those of us in broadcasting, many of us have one and kind of need one. It's been a relief for me to have one just to handle things that I don't want to handle. But that's a different deal for Greg Sankey. He's got his path is pretty much set for as long as he wants to run that conference, and I don't think he's in a hurry to get out.
No, I imagine his negotiation looks a lot like him writing down numbers on a piece of paper with a year in terms and sliding
that's about
across
right.
the table. Yeah,
that's about right.
He seems like a napkin guy, like sitting in the airport. You know, I've decided on 10 years, 40 million. I'll just drop this napkin off on my way into the office, and whoever gets back to me will get back to me. He just seems,
I wish we could all just be napkin guys. Those were easier times.
That's right.
Simpler times, better times. Just write it down on the napkin.
You don't like where we are now? I think it's wonderful.
Give me that. Excuse me, waitress. Another napkin and a pen.
Tommy want wingy.
I've got another idea.
Tommy want wingy.
Tommy want wingy.
Oh man!
Turn those fryers back on. Come on.
Chicken wings. We are at the end of hour number 1 on this Monday morning. It's hot wherever you are. We know that. It's hot freaking everywhere, and it's been nothing different here in the Palmetto State. Mike Morgan going to stick around for another segment or so with us as well. JC is working on some issues, and we'll get them.
You know what it is?
Done. Yeah.
We can I let the cat out of the bag? I mean, we are going to do this on a regular basis and call it the Power Hour. Mm-hmm. We have stolen JC's power for the Power Hour. We have basically siphoned off all of his power and put it into this action-packed segment. So we're going to have to call up the utility companies, get some extra juice, because this segment is going to require it.
That's right.
As he says, he lives in the state of Illinois. You just never know up there with the leadership. So someone might have just cut it off. They decided they wanted to.
I think that's legal there. I think you can just steal people's power. It's not even a misdemeanor.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty much it. When we get back, you hit on Mike did hit on scheduling. There's I have a question, and a poll question almost for all of you to see what your response is to that, including that also in that segment will include new offensive coordinators in the league, some stuff from Alabama, and much more. We'll, of course, get some Gamecock topics in as well. Don't go anywhere. Mike Morgan hanging on and hanging out with us here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show built by the Barn Doco. The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks.
Charleston Fitness Equipment is keeping South Carolina in shape. Clients have come from all over the Palmetto State to find that one piece of equipment that they enjoy that keeps them looking and feeling good. Whether it's a home rower, treadmill, elliptical, free weights, a home gym, or something else, Charleston Fitness Equipment keeps the mirror smiling back at you. Get in shape like the Gamecocks do. Visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com. Gamecock owned and operated and proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
If you're in the real estate market in the Low Country or even in the Midlands, please contact me, JB with Coast to Coast Realty SC. You hear me and see me every day here on Inside the Gamecocks, and it would be an honor to earn your business. I've been around real estate my entire life, as it's somewhat of a family business. I work with an elite team of experts from loans to insurance to closing, and they make my clients and my life very easy. It really is elite. Coast to Coast Realty SC.com is where you can find our staff, and you can always reach out to me here as well. Go Gamecocks.
Coach O here. And when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning. It'll melt in your mouth. It's good on a cracker. It's good in a bowl. It's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Welcome back, everybody.
He got it. He's in. They paid the bill. JC Sherbert.
We paid for the upgrade.
I'm just I was like, we're deciding on the plan, right? Keep in mind, you got two teenage gamers here that play a lot. You got her working today. You got me working today. We're all streaming. We went with the Cadillac package, right? The absolute strongest internet you can get. And it's just quirky. It's like my dog. It's like Moody. Like for a week, it went out like right at 12:58 Eastern with us 2 minutes to go on the show. Every day for like a week, 12:58. Boom. Get me off. Just now, we had a microwave interference. That was number one. And then number two, as it does once a month, just completely conks out for 2 minutes. Like he's like, hey, hang on, guys. I'm going to go take a break.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
I'll be right back. So anyway.
Well, while you were gone, we do have some news to pass along here from Brett McMurphy. And he doesn't miss. If he reports it, it's generally on. The SEC Media Days next year will be in Dallas officially, with Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. So that is, it's not necessarily the news of, oh God, we were all waiting to find out where Media Days was going to be next year. It's more the fact that they're making an effort to hold their largest preseason event in the state of Texas. And I can only imagine if it's going to be in Dallas, what that thing's going to look like. But so that is news. And then also, this is kind of interesting news as well. Clark Lee, it was announced by Vanderbilt today that he's been extended. Here's the issue with the announcement. There are literally no details, no length of time, no nothing. Just
private school. Private school. You don't have to release anything. Somebody told me once a figure on Jerry Stackhouse's salary, and I don't know if it was accurate or not, but it was like it kind of blew me away. But there's no way to really check that. They don't have to release it.
Well, no, and that's fine.
As far as the other one, because I don't know if Clark Lee is going to send chills down the spines of Gamecock fans out there. And I like Clark, by the way. I think he's a good fit, much better than the last one that they had there, which just seemed like a just kind of out of the box hire that didn't necessarily fit.
Disaster.
That's another way of putting it. Yeah,
no, I mean, he took over a 9-win team with 18 starters back and decided to like be Stanford.
Right.
0-8 in the SEC. I called that. I caught so much hell from the 12 Vanderbilt fans in Nashville. They were calling me. They said, "Go lay with your." The direct quote: "Crap you not. Go lay with your Gamecock bedfellows." Because I picked Vandy to go 0-8 in 2014, and damn it if they didn't do it.
Yeah.
How's that for your bedfellows?
They aren't this year though. I'm going back to my reliable 2-6. Yeah.
I like. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Mike. Go ahead.
No. It kind of brings me back. I mean, I remember when the hire was made, and again, there are various national media members that wanted the hire to work, so they told you it was a great hire, and so that just kind of perpetuates itself into the narrative, like, oh, okay, well. All these guys that cover college football tell me it was a brilliant hire, therefore it must be a brilliant hire. And then you take a closer look, and it wasn't a brilliant hire at all. And then they weren't just losing games; they were getting scorched. And then when they beat a Tennessee program that's just completely underwater with all the drama that they've had, he's dancing like he just won a national championship. It's like, no, you're 6-6. But yeah, going back to the other one, I'd heard about Dallas for a while, and make no mistake about it, Jerry Jones wanted this. And what the SEC under its leadership is doing now, and they're one of the few leagues that can do this, they are taking their media days and making it an event, almost like the NFL draft. Mm-hmm. So the NFL draft used to be in the same city, in the same place, Radio Music Hall, every year. And then they realized, we can bid this out and we can make a lot of money and we can expand the brand, if you will. And that's what the SEC is doing. So they are making this. I mean, look, the SEC network is got like 90 something hours of coverage of these 4 days. And you can justify it because people are going to watch. I don't know if they're going to do that for any other league in the country. And so, Dallas and Jerry and that stadium, they wanted this to be there. I'm sure this doesn't exactly make the Big 12 feel great because for the longest time, that's been Big 12 country, and now all of a sudden the SEC is kind of planting its flag and going, nope, we're here now. You guys had a nice run, but this is our area. This is our territory.
Well, of course, if you're the Big 12, you're saying, hey, look, the one team in Texas that, made it to the playoff last year was not A&M, and it did not have Hookem associated with it. It was TCU. So,
well, I thought Yormack had a great line on that, Jamie, and that was somebody asked, like, how concerned are you that you're losing Texas and Oklahoma? And he's like, the last time I checked, they haven't been in the Big 12 championship game much at all the last 5 years. And he's right.
Oklahoma.
I mean, Oklahoma. I mean, it was more about Texas last year.
It's all about Texas. Texas only won the Big 12 3 times, and however long that league's come up.
That's right. That's right.
They've had 2 really great teams at Texas.
Well, and I think that's a valuable point, JC. I mean, the SEC, the whole country is celebrating these 2 programs coming into the league. It is really only going to strengthen it, but which team is going to add more instant impact as far as the top of the league, right?
Now it's Texas. I mean, their roster is just so far ahead of what Oklahoma. I don't think people truly appreciated what Venables inherited or what he did not inherit because of the portal. And I had an Oklahoma game last year. I mean, I got to sit there and talk to the coaches and go in those meeting rooms and really put the roster under a microscope. And I was sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, this is good, but it ain't Oklahoma good. Because when you lose a Lincoln Riley and he takes a perhaps number one pick in the draft quarterback with them and some other players with them, and then other players bolt for here, there, and everywhere. That does not look like an Oklahoma roster. And so I don't think people were ready for that. And so what did they do after disappointing loss after disappointing loss and a couple of embarrassing losses? There was a lot of anti-Venables sentiment that the guy is in over his head and it's going to be a complete disaster of a hire. And look, I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm just telling you, he didn't have a chance to have a typical Oklahoma year with that roster. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe Oklahoma gets back and they would assume their dominance over Texas, which they have, as JC pointed out. I mean, they've just been the better program for the last, going back to Bob Stoops and then Lincoln Riley. But it's going to take a couple of years to get some of those Oklahoma type players back in Norman, because they last year was clearly not. That was just not a top 10 roster, and we're used to seeing Oklahoma being in the top 10 every year.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just say this about Oklahoma last year too. You know, they really struggled towards the middle of the season, but if you look at it, they did win Bedlam again. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Played Texas Tech in a shootout, and then gave Florida State really a team that a lot of people have top 5, top 10 this year.
Yeah.
All they wanted in what was basically a road game. I agree, the talent wasn't there. I do think he's recruiting very well on defense. And you know, to the overall point, I'll throw it to you, JB. I'm mixed on this. Part of me thinks they're going to struggle. You know, Texas, until they go better than 8-5, 8-4, they're still that team. I mean, they've got all the talent in the world, but they're still that team. Oklahoma, obviously, as Mike pointed out, has issues because they did get gutted by Lincoln Riley leaving. You know, and I think, well, you know, they're just not ready. I mean, sure, they're going to get up to play Alabama. Everybody does. But what happens when they go to Mississippi State for a 11 a.m. Central kickoff one day, and they're like, well, we're the mighty Texas Longhorns. We're just going to roll in and roll over you. And they get hit in the mouth, and the cowbells are going, and they just get ambushed. But I thought the same thing would happen to Texas A&M and Missouri. And it did to a certain extent with Missouri the first year, and then it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't to A&M at all. They've been between 7 and 11 wins, despite having been a 6-6 team when they came into the league. You know, so sometimes when you get thrown in the pool, you swim. Sometimes you don't. My other theory on that is this. I think when Missouri and A&M came into the league, you know, LSU and A&M kind of historical rivalry. Alabama was cool to play them because of the history with the coaching changes there and stuff. But did anybody really go, oh, man, A&M, I'm fired up to play, or Missouri, my God, they're on the schedule now. Everybody in this league is going to be fired up to play Texas and Oklahoma. So that's a part of it too, that, you know, A&M kind of took the league by surprise, and then Missouri did the next 2 years. I don't know that the Longhorns and Sooners, just because of who they are going to sneak up on anybody.
They're not.
In fact, they're going to be circled every game. They'll be circled.
I think what they're about to figure out when they get, and Mike, you'll know this better than anybody because you've been in every ballpark in the league, but I think what they're about to discover is that the middle class of this league is what actually truly makes it so valuable. We know the top of the league every year is going to be somebody. Alabama, Georgia, LSU, whomever it may be. The SEC is always going to have somebody at the top of the league. It's the blue collar games where you get caught in the middle class of this league and you look up at the end of the year and you go, damn, we're 4-4 in the league, or we're 5-3 in the league, or, you know, whatever it may be. It's not like that in other leagues. It's not as deep in the middle.
No, I mean, look, the Big Ten, which is kind of like, you know, the clear-cut number 2, right? There's the SEC number 1, there's the Big Ten number 2, and then there's this chasm before you get to Big 12, ACC, and again, whatever the pack is going to be, whatever it's going to look like. The Big Ten, now granted, last year was a little bit of an aberration where you had simultaneously so many middle-of-the-pack programs down at the same time, like a Wisconsin, like a Michigan State. But for the most part, that's an Ohio State-Michigan league. The SEC is not just a Georgia-Alabama league. Okay, LSU just won a national title a few years ago. And by the way, they're my pick to win the West again this year. Tennessee clearly on the rise. A&M, if they ever do figure it out with Bobby Petrino or what have you, maybe they're the next great thing. We've seen Florida have glimpses. We've seen Ole Miss have glimpses. And, you go back to last year and you go back to Spurrier's heyday, obviously we've seen the Gamecocks have glimpses. That's the difference. I mean, that's just, with all due respect, and JC can tell you on JC and Morgan, I've waved a flag for the Big 12. I like that league. I've called several games in that league, but it just doesn't stack up top to bottom like the SEC, and nobody does. To JC's point, when you get thrown in the pool, sometimes you got to swim. I think Oklahoma's recruiting can only be helped by being in the SEC. I mean, Texas has been a consistent recruiting winner, right? So it's like how much better can they do than the top 10 classes that they produce every year anyway? I don't know how much better they can do. I expect Oklahoma to get a bump in recruiting. The only thing about the Oklahoma bump is that if you go back to all those really good Oklahoma teams under Lincoln Riley, so many of them were that good based on what? Based on a transfer quarterback that wanted to play for Lincoln Riley and wanted to play in his system. Even if Venables hits a home run and everything he does and is the great defensive mind that he proved to be at Clemson, and he recruits well and he's got juice back in the program, and Norman, our quarterback's going to line up to play in whoever the OC's. Did they make a change in the OC this year? I can't remember.
At Oklahoma?
Yeah. No?
It's still Jeff Lebby, which is
okay.
Art Briles' son-in-law.
Yeah, I mean, and look,
I have a note on that too.
And Lebby, look,
it's
Lebby
the Heupel system. Yeah.
Yeah, and Lebby did great things at Ole Miss. Like they are pumped about that hire. Lebby did a lot of good things. He didn't just all of a sudden forget how to coach. Clearly, the personnel was not great. Dylan Gabriel is not a great college quarterback. He just isn't. I was told that by UCF fans going into that. He wasn't great at UCF. He's not going to be great at Oklahoma. But at my initial point, I don't know if they're going to get all of these like first round draft picks to all of a sudden decide they want to play for Jeff Lebby the way they did. Lincoln Riley developed in a quick amount of time. He developed a rep as, I am the quarterback whisperer. Mm-hmm. I am a guy that you come here, you are going to put up ridiculous numbers, compete for Heisman trophies, and be perhaps the number one pick in the draft. And he backed it up time and time again. There's very few guys in college football, even Lane Kiffin and some of the other ones, that can truly lay claim to that. And so losing him wasn't just a loss and, rocks the boat. It ruins your continuity. It takes a guy that could get the number one transfer quarterback every year in a time where we are basically in free agent in college football. You don't have that now without Lincoln Riley.
By the way, as we head to break here, trivia question for all of you. Do any of you know who the last sitting head coach was that was hired by the University of Oklahoma?
Wait a minute. Say that again. The last
sitting head coach. Remember, yes, they had Lincoln Riley and Bob Stoops. Neither one of them were head coaches before they were hired by the Sooners, right? Stoops was at Florida. Lincoln.
And Blake wasn't either.
No.
And that was a disaster among all disasters.
Who was the last sitting head coach? A head coach who was,
and it wasn't Switzer.
Was it Howard Schnellen? What?
It was Howard
Schnellenberger.
He was still at Louisville. Was he still at Louisville? Yeah, that was.
He was
right.
Yeah. And then
he was there for 1 year.
He quit in December. He said that the climate had changed. Okay.
That's right. Good old Schnelly.
That's
who
there
should
you go.
be in the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Is he not in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Is it his winning percentage?
I can't remember if he falls short of the 60% necessary, which is a terrible rule, by the way.
Yeah.
But he is not in the College Football Hall of Fame. That's a joke.
Wow.
That's unbelievable. I mean, I would even give him, I know that it didn't end well, but I would even give him credit for what he did down at Florida Atlantic.
Absolutely.
He did really well there. He went 158, 151.
Wait, first off, he's the reason why they have football at Full Atlantic. They don't have it without him. Like, seriously, like behind the scenes, he basically did all of that. He got them the stadium. He got them funding. He was out there, you know, with the hat and running bake sales. Like, please, we can have football here in Boca. And if you know anything about Boca, there ain't anything about Boca that feels like college football. It just doesn't. No. So he pulled off a miracle just to get that program alive. But yeah, I mean, and he also took Miami, which was a perennial joke of a program. If you watch the documentary, The U, go back and look at what Miami football was. There was talk they were just going to give up on college football until Schnellenberger did what he did, and he changed the recruiting philosophy, and the rest is he set it up for Jimmy, who set it up for Dennis, who, you know. But he should be a Hall of Famer for sure.
He did the state of Miami. He's the one that drew the map. Said, okay, here's what we're going to do. This is the state of Miami. We're going to recruit this area, which is always smart. And the coaches that haven't won at Miami are the ones that get greedy and try to go all over the country. I remember Al Golden one time signed a defensive back from Massachusetts. Good little player. I'm like, dude, bro, you could throw a rock and hit 5 guys from your campus that are just as good or better than this guy. I don't care what star ratings they are.
Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. That's all you need.
Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, and then you pop over to places like Pahokee and in Palm Beach, inland Palm Beach, and then Immokalee over on maybe Fort Myers on the West Coast, and
Glade Central.
Rock and roll kind of up maybe the corridor. They got some guys out of Orlando and Jacksonville too, but it was primarily down there. Mm-hmm. And like those teams Butch Davis had were probably some of the most loaded in the history of the game. And a lot of those guys were like 2- and 3-star guys that Butch just followed the plan and did. And Howard Schnellenberger deserves that. So yeah, that's an interesting piece of trivia, JB, about Oklahoma. I remember his 1 year at Oklahoma. I thought, oh man, Oklahoma's about to take off again. And boy, it was ugly. I think he went 5-6 and said, screw this. Cause he wasn't a triple option guy like the rest of them and all that. And I think on top of that, on Venables, I think you're going to see Oklahoma go back to being very defensive minded. Like give them 5 years in the SEC. Nobody's going back to grind it out, but I think Oklahoma will be exceptionally good on defense once they get more good defensive recruits in there. And then they'll just have to be able to score stuff on offense. But that's my theory about where they're going. They used to have some of the best defenses in the country.
Fair enough. Let me tell you about football. You got to be able to stop people on defense. You got to be able to score on offense. If you can do that, you can win some games.
That's what John Madden says all the time. Hey, if the team that scores the most points wins the game.
But it'd be no surprise to see Venables, put together, defense first. I mean, obviously,
sure.
Because it was, not just because he's a defensive-minded guy, but it was a recipe for success at his last job.
They're recruiting.
You just put it together recruiting wise, and you get these huge athletic guys up front on the defensive side of the ball. When good things are going to happen for you.
And they're recruiting guys from the South and stuff, defensive line. They're doing just like they're in an IM. Like that's the Clemson IMG connection was Venables and those guys, Bates and those guys. So they're getting the D lineman out of Florida like Clemson did. So we'll see.
We are powered by Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com. If you haven't been outside in the last, month, then you don't understand how hot it's been. But if you have, you understand that riding a bike for 20 miles is miserable. Why don't you just get one with a motor on it? Then you can take a beer with you. electricbikescharleston.com, anywhere in the state of South Carolina. But if you're an outsider like Mike Morgan and you cross state lines, they will also allow you to purchase a bike. If you're in the low country, you do not actually have to be a resident of the Palmetto State. That's tongue-in-cheek totally. electricbikescharleston.com. We need to hit a timeout. Greg Sankey, by the way, is up in just a little bit, just ahead of the Dallas news breaking. I'm sure he was thrilled about that. We'll be right back. Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. in-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter at Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on two wheels. Magnum, Velotric, Aventum bikes, and more. And they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle help you handle the southern heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available all ages and sizes. ElectricBikesCharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Bikes are Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston! Electric Bikes of Charleston!
Tell you what, Phil, if Spencer Rattler's keeping cigars in his travel bag this fall, that's probably a good sign for Gamecock football.
Yeah, let's hope he's got 12 of them in individually wrapped containers.
I know he's done some
Yeah.
traveling lately too, so they might be the nice Cuban ones. If not, Mike's in Florida. He's close enough. We'll send him over there and see if he can't make it back with a few of them for old Spencer Rattler. Mike, I do have a Spencer Rattler question for you real quick. There are, I don't know if you realize this, per the SEC network this morning, and I knew it was up there, but I didn't know it was this high, 10 new offensive coordinators this year in the league. Ooh, that's a lot. There are 14 schools. That's a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of new starting quarterbacks that they'll be working with.
Yes.
Which, we just had Aaron Murray on, all-time SEC passing leader, and we had him kind of break down the quarterback position this year. And I think it's a very good crop, but I don't think you're going to have the overall production that you had last year because you had so many guys under center or in the shotgun who knew exactly what it was like to be a starting quarterback in the SEC and had already had a level of success under their belt, and so they continued to shine another year. This year, I mean, is Joe Milton going to be a stud, or is he going to be the guy that, the Nuke Lelouch of the SEC that can throw it 100 miles an hour but can't put it over the plate? there's question marks at Ole Miss has got to figure out which guy they're going to start. I think it's going to be Jackson Dart.
Sure.
You got Will Rogers at Mississippi State, and yes, you got Spencer Rattler, who, if you just build on the momentum of the last 3 games of a year ago, should have a terrific year in Columbia. And you've also got your top receiver back. I mean, there's just no reason why he can't be. And I didn't feel this way last year, and I was very honest about it. I didn't think Spencer Rattler was going to be an all-SEC quarterback. I just thought there was too many proven commodities in that league, and he hadn't gone through the gamut yet. This year could be different. I mean, this year Spencer Rattler should have a ton of confidence, a ton of comfort. I realize there's a new offensive coordinator. I'm sure there's some Gamecock fans that probably feel like that's a good thing. At least they did before all of a sudden it was going right. But I think Spencer Rattler has a chance to have one of the best years in the SEC of the SEC quarterback club, if you will. Alabama hasn't figured it out yet. Georgia has a guy that, again, some people will tell you he's going to just walk right in, plug and play, and they're going to dominate again. And, of course, he's got a ton of help. He's got the best tight end in college football. He's got improved receivers. He's got a really good offensive line, and they've always got guys who can tote the rock in the backfield in Athens. So he doesn't have near as much pressure in terms of having to have everything on his shoulders. But there's still question marks there. Come a big game. Is that going to say what you want about Stetson Bennett? The dude was pretty clutch. He's going to be in the College Football Hall of Fame, as insane as that sounds. Believe it. Stetson Bennett will be in the College Football Hall of Fame based on resume. But there's a lot of question marks out there at other places. I don't know what to expect out of Graham Mertz at Florida.
Mike, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's anything, I don't want to say anything good, but that is probably the most interesting transfer in the league this year because I don't understand the fit. And you know as well as any of us here, running down to Florida and going 7-5 this year, it's not what they're after.
Well, that'd be an improvement over last year where they went 6
it
and
would.
7.
But still.
No, you're right. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they'll turn on Billy Napier in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I promise you. They will turn on him as they turned on Dan Mullen, as they turned on Jim McElwain, as they turned on Will Muschamp, as they turned on Ron Zook. Like, there's a track record of Florida coaches that didn't get off to great starts, and the fan base decided after a couple of years, toss them. Billy did some good things at Louisiana, and he was there to really improve on recruiting. Well, they have done that. JC tells me this, and based on the rankings, I guess they have. But this is not like a 4-year rebuild plan in Gainesville for Billy Napier. They better do something this year. And if you look at the Vegas odds, I think they're predicted to win like 5.5 games. So that's going to be very interesting. Yeah, and it's not just Graham Mertz. I mean, I don't know who on that offense really scares people. What do you game for? Like
I would just throw this out there. Might not want to lose to Vandy again this year.
No, you definitely don't want to do that. And that was there was no excuse for that in year one. You didn't have the most talented team, but you had enough to certainly win a couple of the games that you should have. And they started off, I mean, they win the game against Utah in dramatic fashion. At that point, everybody is on the Anthony Richardson bandwagon, and I realize he was a top 10 pick, but Anthony Richardson, in terms of college football, was not a very good player. He just wasn't. He was completely erratic. He was inaccurate. For every highlight he made, he just didn't make simple throws and simple reads. And I was told that he was going to struggle with that before the season ever started by Shane Matthews, who we've had on our podcast, and I go on his from time to time. So they have to figure things out. But that's the theme of a lot of programs in terms of quarterback play this year. For every KJ Jefferson, Spencer Rattler, Jaden Daniels, who I think, when it's all said and done, might put together the best season of any SEC quarterback this year. As you can tell, I'm pretty high on LSU, and maybe a little bit of recency bias. I had him in the spring football game, but He's going to be better this year. He's bigger, he's stronger, and he's got a ton of talent around him.
Well, I think that's fair, guys. I was on with Bill this morning, and Heath made a really good point. And this has to do with Jaden Daniels, but it really mostly has to do with Brian Kelly. Not to get too far off here, but to kind of combine the two subjects, Mike. If Ed Orgeron, that's JC's, buddy, they're hot tub friends. If Ed Orgeron and Les Miles can go to LSU and win national championships, why on planet Earth can't Brian Kelly, right?
Listen, and JC can definitely vouch for this. I was defending Brian Kelly last year after the Florida State loss, which somehow was his fault that the guy missed a kick. And by the way, Florida State was pretty good. There were a lot of people. There's simply a lot of people who don't like Brian Kelly, and why I have no idea. I've only dealt with him twice in person, and he could not be a nicer human being. So he talked with a phony Southern accent. I get it, ha ha ha.
That was strange.
But there were people that didn't like him before that.
Yeah,
and that the glee that people had when he lost to Florida State last year, it wasn't just people that hated LSU. That's natural rivalry stuff. There was a little bit. I can always sense this stuff. For whatever, there's various reasons why some people out there don't like Brian Kelly. Does not make any sense to me. Good dude, hell of a coach, and is going to win in Baton Rouge, and he's going to win big. So, yes, to your point, there's no reason why he can't win a national title. He's got more talent in Baton Rouge than he ever had in South Bend, and he did pretty well at Notre Dame as well.
All-time winningest coach there. I like him because he's not a guy that was born on third and thinks he hit a triple.
Right,
he worked his way up. His name could be Jamie Bradford or Mike Morgan or Phil Mullinax or J.C. Sherbert. He won at Grand Valley State. He was there 10 years. Y'all know how cold it is there? Cold.
Yeah.
Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, all-time winningest coach in Notre Dame history. Won more than Rockne, won more than Holtz, won more than Parsegian. All right?
That's a great
won
point.
More than Dan Devine.
Yeah.
And I think it took them as far as they can go until they get off their academic selectiveness at Notre Dame, and wanted a job where he can go get better athletes to put him over the top. I don't blame him. I mean, he's hated up here in Chicago. He's just despised.
Because
Brian Kelly left Notre Dame kind of dry. Give me a beef sandwich and a beer and just go kick him in the nuts.
Well, that's how he felt about in Cincinnati too, right? Isn't that where it kind of started?
He did kind of leave like a thief.
Yeah.
Brother,
and there's no good way to leave.
No.
When you're at Grand Valley State 10 years,
yeah,
you have paid your dues. Okay, you have paid your dues.
Yeah,
and nobody wants to talk about that. I mean, Marcus Freeman, who really has done nothing to deserve the Notre Dame job other than be the DC there when Kelly left, right? Nothing.
And for how long?
He was the guy that worked for the guy, whatever. The country explodes in joy when he gets that job. When Lincoln Riley was promoted, everybody, oh my God, the wonderkind, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Arguably, Lincoln Riley got that job rather early in his career as a Power 5 coordinator at 34 years old.
He'd only been
Freeman had nothing to deserve it. And that got more hype than Lincoln Riley. I mean, than Brian Kelly getting the LSU job.
Yeah, I agree. And Lincoln was only there for 2 years.
People don't really celebrate work anymore.
Well,
and Brian Kelly has worked.
I think we've learned that the large majority of people, they hear things and read things and do zero research on their own, and they just formulate opinions and they fall in line, and that's it. They're telling me to celebrate this, so I'll celebrate it, right? It doesn't make any sense, but that's nature of the beast. All right, Mike, final one. We'll get you out of here. I mentioned all the new OCs. I think that it's interesting in the fact that Alabama brings in Tommy Rees, speaking of Notre Dame. But they also brought in Notre Dame's quarterback, Tyler Buckner, both of whom had something to do with defeating South Carolina in the bowl game. You look up the road in Lexington, you've got Devin Leary transferring in from NC State, and your boy, next time you talk to Chris Doring, he did it again this morning. He's back on the Kentucky
back
train.
on the bandwagon.
He just can't get off. I started laughing. Oh, poor Chris. I mean, they got to be paying him right under the table or something.
Well, he listens to Matt Jones, and whenever he does an interview with Matt Jones, he's convinced Kentucky's going to win 12 games.
Oh, well, shoot, we need to get him on our show then, right?
Yeah,
and all of a sudden Carolina's he'll Greg McElroy himself like Greg did back in 2014. Gamecocks going to be in the championship. So but no, to his point, he did not predict 11 wins like he did last year. He said he thought they had a chance to be pretty good. But he's got a good point though. Liam Cohen was a really good OC in Lexington. And he's back. Devin Leary's a good quarterback.
He's back, and their offensive line was the most atrocious of any Power 5 school in college football.
Oh, it was horrible.
So you asked a banged-up quarterback in Will Levis with a leaky offensive line, 2 freshman wide receivers, and your best running back is suspended every other week. That's what was going on in Lexington. That is not a reflection of what the job that Mark Stoops has done and will continue to do. They will continue to get kids from the Midwest that are just below the level of the kids that all flock to Columbus, Ohio, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And Kentucky will always be the gateway to the SEC for those Midwestern kids. So Mark Stoops realized early on the key to recruiting at Kentucky is not to go south and try to beat Georgia and Bama and Auburn and all these kids from the South. The key for Kentucky is to go north, young man, and get those tier 2 guys, and many of them have panned out pretty well. And then now in the land of the portal, they get transfers, and they get transfers who have done pretty well. And very often there are guys that were interested in Kentucky, but Kentucky got beaten out by somebody else, and then for whatever reason doesn't work at that other school, and they wind up back at Kentucky. And with Cohen's reputation as an OC and what he did with Will Levis 2 years ago, that's how you land a Devin Leary, and that's how you solve a core. Because I'm telling you right now, they had nothing. If they didn't get a Devin Leary in the portal, they were in trouble.
Yeah.
They were in trouble. That is where the portal can save your hide. Because if you don't have a quarterback that can make plays in this league, you're done. You're absolutely toast. And Kentucky was staring that right in the eyes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got Cohen. Okay, pick up the phone. We got Leary. Boom. Now we're back to being competitive Kentucky.
Yeah, one of the most beautifully played bowl games ever. Mark Stoops' offensively challenged alma mater defeated the Wildcats 21-0 in the Music City Bowl last year.
Yeah, it was awesome. I love it.
And Levis had already left, and I saw the kid behind him play against Carolina. Got upside, but just clearly not ready. Just wanted to point out how bad Kentucky was on offense.
Is it a foregone conclusion that Buckner's starting in Alabama, or do y'all think that's a real competition?
It's not a foregone conclusion. It's a competition. Yeah. Now, I think, just one man's opinion, and watching some of those other guys last year for 2 hours at an Alabama practice perform, it's going to be Buckner.
Okay.
That's my take. I could be wrong. Maybe Buckner goes in there and, the eyes get big looking at an Alabama defense every week in practice. Is like, oh, man, I don't know if I signed up for this. But my guess is Nick saw what he had in spring ball and said, we better bring somebody else in here. Mm-hmm. We got to do it. I mean, they got a battering ram for a quarterback that can run, but I don't know if he's ready to do everything that you need to be championship level good, which is all they care about in Tuscaloosa. Championship level good in the SEC.
He can't throw the ball, man. I mean, he's going to get a lot better. And then Ty Simpson, to me, watching their spring game, I don't want to overrate the spring game. He just doesn't seem ready. I said the other guy wasn't ready.
Right.
Tyler Buckner can run. Tyler Buckner can throw. He's got his OC there. He's very comfortable with. He would have been Notre Dame starter the whole year last year. He's just got to cut down on mistakes. They're not going to tolerate those types of mistakes at Alabama like he made at Notre Dame, but he cleans that up. He's a hell of a player. People need to go back and watch him in the Gator Bowl. Watch him before that,
Yeah, and I'll tell you this: the last year, so much of the talk about Alabama was kind of like it's been at Clemson the last couple of years. Like, what happened to all those stud receivers? Where I'm looking around and like, who's the go-to wideout? Where's Amari Cooper? Where's Julio Jones? It wasn't there. But they were all freshmen. I mean, they were all 18, 19-year-old kids. I imagine someone from that group is going to emerge as a stud. And so this year, they will have more weapons on the outside than they did last. I mean, it's a miracle what Bryce Young did. No one's going to feel sorry for an Alabama quarterback, right? I mean, you are surrounded by a bunch of 5-star players, but they didn't have productive wideouts in that offense. They didn't have that. They certainly didn't have like a Bowers at tight end like they did in Athens. They didn't even have your typical Alabama just running backs where you like give it to him 25 times and he flirts with 200 yards. Like, it just wasn't your typical supporting cast. This year, I can't imagine that it won't be better.
And I'll say this, they had a really tough 2021 recruiting cycle at receiver, not star rating wise, but and this happens to programs. It happened to Florida in 2010, and Urban Meyer almost, he left coaching for a while because of it. They got some bad apples. There's no other way to spin it. I mean, guys like, A.G. Hall, who came in from Florida. He's now at Texas because he couldn't cut it. Nick Saban even said that when receivers kept getting hurt in the SEC championship game and they started to struggle. He's like, well, some of these guys don't take advantage of their opportunity. He's like, they have to do what they have. They have to do what they need to do to perform when they get out there, and they're not doing it. And he said it again after the championship game they lost. And yeah, you're right. They have not been the same, even though they did continue to recruit big time guys. These guys just haven't. I don't know if they came in with a little entitlement or they just assumed they'd be good because they're going to Bama. But something in that 2021 class just kind of misfired on them, and it kind of. I think they'll still have to be young and talented at that position this year.
Well, we've kept you long enough, Mike. We'll end it with this while y'all discuss the things that they don't have. They do have Kevin Steele. After he didn't get the Auburn job, he drove right down the road, took the DC job in T-Town. Somewhere Steve Sarkisian's going, God, I can't wait to play in Tuscaloosa this year. See what happens.
Hey, by the way, before we sign off, I was sneaking a peek at some of your listeners and your comments there. 76 Gamecock, appreciate the kind words, and yes, we're going to do this on a regular basis. We kind of buried the lead on that, but I'm looking forward to joining you guys. You guys
more
are
regular than you know.
Yeah. you guys are the best Gamecock show running. I'm a little bit biased because I know you, and I've had the pleasure of working with JC for a long time, and Jamie, the Charleston show coming on with you for quite a bit, but you guys have done amazing work here in a short amount of time, and I certainly value my time when I do these, but this is going to be a lot of fun. So to Gamecock Nation, I look forward to chatting with you and hearing from you and joining this show throughout the year.
Poor Tiffany. Oh my God, that's Mike Morgan. Hello.
Yeah, I saw that earlier.
It's not actually Kaiser Soze.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Yeah, maybe I should have been a little careful with that. Somebody might take that literally.
Nope. No big deal.
You should have come on and been like, when I was in a barbershop quartet in Skokie, Illinois.
Oh, wait, that's not Kaiser Soze. That's Mike Morgan.
For those who don't know, the other thing that we do on JC and Morgan, we just started doing this. We call it Five and Dimers. We pick 3 movies every week, and we decide if it's a fiver when it's on. We've seen it at least 5 times. A dimer, 10, and then there's none of the above. There's some movies like JC picked one the other day that I'd never even seen. But which
is a dimer for me, by the way, Mike. That was one I was like, yeah.
Was it really? Yeah.
Oh yeah, beyond that, yeah, quick change, so, I mean, for sure, man.
I'm not criticizing it. I literally never even heard of it, which is hard to believe that just completely missed my radar, a Bill Murray movie, a Bill Murray comedy. But anyway, so Usual Suspects would be like a fiver for me. And I haven't seen it in a while, but it's funny. I still remember the name Kaiser Sose. So it's like, I haven't seen that movie in years, and yet that still rings true today.
Dude, that movie's a Benjamin. I could probably quote most of it.
Yeah, well, there you go.
This is Agent Don Coulion. I'll be in New York or Los Angeles for the week. Leave a message like that. Chaz Palminteri is in that movie as Agent Coulion. Great Chaz Palminteri from A Bronx Tale. By the way,
that's a dimer.
Underrated performance.
We need to do Bronx Tale.
Yes,
that's a dimer. Ed put on Boiler Room.
Oh,
Boiler Room is a dimer for me, and I guarantee you most of your audience have never even seen Boiler Room. This was a 2-star movie. I saw it in a theater in Columbia, and there might have been 6 people in the entire theater. This is when people actually went to movies. But it had a cast, like the biggest name, I guess, was Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, yeah.
And it was in a lot of ways. If you've seen Glengarry,
wasn't Vin Diesel in that movie?
He was before people knew who Vin Diesel was.
Yeah.
Before the Fast and Furious, meathead brand and franchise, Vin was just a regular guy in that movie. The other guy, the main
Tweeter. Tweeter was in it.
Yes, he's in that movie.
Yeah,
James Caan's kid.
I haven't seen it in so long.
Tweeter's in that movie.
Yeah.
By the way, we broke down. So Forrest Gump was on the last one, and one of the things we do when we do a deep dive on one of them is the weakness of the film. The weakness to me, and I just thought about this watching it for the 37th time the other day on cable, is that do you realize Forrest Gump, while playing for the Bear at Alabama, he was an All-American, right? Remember, he makes the All-American team. He shakes hands with the president. He's drinking too many Dr. Peppers. Yeah. Well, what position was he when he made the All-American team?
Was he not a running back?
Kick returner? He
was a kick returner.
Yeah.
Because he didn't I don't think they trust, Forrest to read the holes and make the right play. And God knows if you ask him to go into pass protect, you're going to get your quarterback killed. I mean, Forrest is not going to be running that to perfection, right? So he makes the All-American game, or he makes the All-American team as a returner, which means, if you watch those returns, he's running like a 4.2. Nobody can catch him. And so you mean to tell me he couldn't have gotten a cup of coffee in the NFL? They go right from like he's an All-American return man that nobody can catch, nobody can tackle, and then before you know it, he's in Vietnam. I'm here to tell you it might be in the AFL, it might be in the NFL, it might be in the World League of American Football, but Forrest Gump's football career, it still had some life in it. And so to me, that's the flaw in the movie.
Man, if it weren't for Vietnam, Gump would be in Canton.
You put a lot of thought into this. That's
I did this thing called the Wonderlic test.
Forrest not
Wonderlic was
strong Wonderlic. Yeah, he's not great at that. But you don't have to look. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to catch ball, return ball, go to the end zone.
They held up a sign for
as well as anybody.
Stop.
Yeah, stop. Yeah, right.
Before there was ever Devin Hester, there was Forrest Gump, and
that's true.
That guy. Come on now, Gump could have played some pro ball, and I know there was a draft before some of you '60s historians jump on my case here. But if you're that much of a talent, they tended to avoid you. Like you didn't see it's not like Ted Williams in World War II, where you had to go and fly a jet in the middle of your career, in the prime of your baseball career when you're hitting like 400. Vietnam, if you were a major star or star athlete, performer, you pretty much got to avoid the draft. So I'm telling you, Gump would have played some pro ball. Maybe then Jenny would have stopped doing drugs and hanging out with malcontents and would have actually given Gump the love that he deserves. It took me down a dark, dark path, and I could not stop thinking about it.
God, I wish NIL was around back then for Forrest, man. He would have crushed it.
Well, he kind of had, he had a ping pong NIL deal in a way.
Yeah,
he insincerely talked about a paddle that he didn't even use, but Mama said that was okay.
Mama said that.
Well done, Mike. That's high quality H2O right there.
That's how we finish on an SEC Media Days.
That's right. Nothing.
We'll talk about Petrino and who unseats Georgia. We'll get to that next time.
Next week on Inside the Gamecocks, the show with Mike Morgan. What could have been Jonathan Moxon?
Now, see, I went on a thing there too.
Yeah.
We did that movie. We did Varsity Blues, and there's some issues I have with that one as well. If you really break it down, there's some flaws in that film. It's a 2-star movie, but like Roadhouse, it's a movie when it's on, I'm watching. It's not good.
Hold
This
this over your head.
reminds me, I'm out of whipped cream.
No, jeez.
Let me write this down.
Oh boy!
Wow. Now
grocery list we got to keep up with.
She may be a dimer, regardless of what you think of the movie.
Anyway,
I'm just
saying. McElroy, by the way, heard your comments on our show, and he says that Ty Simpson is the guy in Tuscaloosa. So, I guess
he said that.
TBD.
I'm sticking with Tyler Buckner. I said
quote, if I were to bet on one of the 3 horses, I think Ty Simpson's probably going to be the guy throughout the course of the season.
Okay. Well, hey, I mean, he's close to it. He's right there in Birmingham. We recently had him.
How likely you think multiple starters in Tuscaloosa?
Well, that's
what if they start them all? Yeah.
I mean, Nick, Nick's not going to be patient with this thing.
No.
So whoever starts it, the moment they have like a bad game or two, it's going to be like old school Spurrier. I'm just going to pull him in the middle of the game.
Yeah,
Saban Channel and Spurrier down there.
They played like 4 guys against Southern Cal, and then Jalen Hurts just started the rest of the year. And all those guys transferred immediately. That was kind of crazy.
Stockstill's Blue Raiders in week 1 are going to be really scratching their heads by about the second quarter.
It's amazing Rick is still there.
It's amazing. I can't believe he's been there part of 3 decades. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So good for
beautiful Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah, it is. And now Jerry's up there, and Jerry Myers, who you know very well. It's a former Gamecock staff with baseball.
Chris Massaro, the AD.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, that's where.
That's why. Yeah,
that's where connections mean a lot.
That's exactly right.
He has tapped into that bat line to Columbia quite a few times over the years.
Mike, we'll let you run. We're gonna get out of here.
Good, guys.
We'll see you here pretty soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you much.
Thank you, brother. Mike Morgan, the golden tones of Mike Morgan, the best in the business. And we are all but out of time. Greg Sankey is wrapping his comments on the SEC network here in the next little bit, and then they'll be off and running with Brian Kelly, Jimbo Fisher, and Eli Drinkwitz. We will certainly have our feedback on that tomorrow. There is an announcement coming here in a few minutes as well. A Gamecock target, Malcolm Ziegler, maybe a little bit closer than people thought it might be. We'll see where he goes. JC, do you have a quick prediction before we sign off?
I think it's North Carolina. I think he's been I don't want to say unfortunately, because this always happens both ways. I do think he's been communicating to other recruits and maybe trying to lead on that it gets this big close decision. The Gamecocks are into it, but contacts at North Carolina say he's been solid and sewn up for them since he visited, and that hasn't changed. And South Carolina's the contacts there say, "Oh well, he hadn't told us he's not coming, but we don't know." There's not a lot of confidence internally that he's going to go. I mean, the last thing I got from my contact is likely UNC. Could it be like Muhammad Kaba and could he truly shock everyone? Yeah, but in my 15, 16 years covering this stuff, these types of things are few and far between. So my prediction would be North Carolina.
Well, let's hope your prediction is wrong. Although, if he does choose the Tar Heels, it's not over. There's a ways still to go in this recruitment, more than likely, with signing day ahead in December. So we'll get into that. And we didn't much get into today a lot of the updated stuff from the roster, some interesting things to kind of dissect. We'll do that either tomorrow or later. I actually will not be here tomorrow. Phil and JC will be towing the line and handling.
Jamie's got a big day tomorrow. Great big day tomorrow. So we're fired up for him tomorrow.
Yeah, man.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
well,
I'll say this.
Hope they all go straight. Yeah.
And I'll address this tomorrow with all the talk about the heights and weights from the chat box. Please don't overrate this. This is my how many off season? I said 16th off season. There's never been a situation where I've looked and gone, man, when I saw that weight and put it out, man, I knew then this guy was going to suck. Or I knew then this guy was going to be good. There's never been a situation like that, but we're gonna break that down. I want to point some things out, especially when it comes to Sellers' weight, Harbor's weight, and then some of the guys that have lost a little weight, especially in the secondary. We're gonna hash all that out tomorrow.
Certainly look forward to checking in on some of that. SEC Media Days continues. We hope you'll enjoy that throughout the afternoon. Thanks to Mike Morgan. Do I hear the music? I need to put these back in.
Oh, I've been kind of avoiding the music just because it's audio sometimes, and it kind of happens at random. So,
I've had an ear on the TV and an ear on here, and sometimes I don't know what I'm hearing. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss something here from producer Phil, Mad Dog Mullinax. Thanks to Mike Morgan for spending so much time with us today. The official kickoff of college football is ongoing in the Music City. If you have not, please check out thepostandcourier.com and read David Cloninger's absolutely beautifully written column on our dear friend Michael Haney. He's one of the coolest guys on the planet, and it's an awesome, awesome article about his transition from sports media to music. We'll have him on soon as well. For JC and Phil, I'm JB. I'll see you Wednesday. They'll see you tomorrow at 11. Painted garnet and black by a couple of painters. LetMePaintSomething.com and live from the Sonorama Studios inside the Gamecocks, the show.